Hey everyone, this is Super Mario Brothers theme, or the ground theme, played on the 5-string banjo. All right. Okay, there we go. That is Super Mario Brothers ground theme. So, tabs are going to be available in this video on the bottom of the screen. But if you want a PDF of this or you just want to support me, check me out on Patreon. That'll be really helpful. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk a little about some of the theory stuff that I find interesting, the form and the chords and all that stuff. Then we'll talk a little bit about the techniques we're using to put this on the 5-string banjo. And then we're just going to go line by line through the tablature. Okay, so first thing I'm going to say in terms of the theory, this is very inspired by ragtime and proto-jazz, so we've got a lot of syncopation. If this ragtime stuff interests you, I've been doing some other stuff, like I've got an arrangement of The Entertainer and a video I did on Maple Leaf Rag, so I'll link to that. But we're not going to talk much about the chords here, other than the one time we're going to come up with this A-flat chord. So most of this is in the key of C major, and we're just throwing in a couple interesting chords from C minor. These are called mixed modal chords. That'll come up when it comes up. We don't need to spend too much time talking about it. But let's just go into what the form is. So it starts with that little intro, ba-ba-ba-bo-da-ba, which is actually kind of the end of the C section. Then we have this A phrase, ba-bo-bo-da-bo-do-bo-da-ba-da-ba-da-bo-ba-da-da, repeat it, right? Then we have the B section, ba-ba-da-ba-da-da-bo-bo-da-bo-da-ba. We have the C section, which is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then we have the D section. But before we go to the D section, we go back to the A, ba-bo-bo, 2 times. Then we go into the D section, ba-da-ba-bo-do-da-da-do, which is a little bit of a different groove. And then right into the C. So it goes like this. I think I'll put this up on the screen, but it's like A, A, B, B, A, A, C, A, D, and then it repeats. And then there's that little outro when you die that we'll throw in there too. Okay. Now, there's something else that I wanted to mention. Oh, we could talk a little bit just about the syncopation that's happening here. So syncopation is when you're playing things off the beat. There's a lot of stuff that's happening here. So we have things where we stop. There's nothing on beat 1. Right? Or we have these quarter note triplets, which are sometimes tough, right? What's the best example of this? Maybe this part. Right? Da 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 da. And then there's a lot of these weird 8th note syncopations. Da 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 da, which often are a little similar to the da 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 da. So that can be kind of confusing, but if you have the song in your ear, it's not too tough. Okay, now talking about the techniques that we're going to be using. A lot of this is melodic style, which is we're trying to play the melody notes on different strings so we can kind of let them ring into each other. Right? And then a lot of it is single string. Now, this stuff is perfect for single string, but I often find single string feels like a cheat to me because it's kind of like a guitar would play. So this is where you're going thumb, index on one string. Now I've included the fingers that I use. There some of them that I would do a little bit differently depending on how I'm playing it, or I could do in a couple different ways. But the toughest part here that we end up doing that you probably want to repeat is something I think of as a rundown. Like running up the strings is relatively easy. Like if we go 4, 3, 2, 1, we can just go thumb, index, thumb, index. But often I find when you go the reverse, that gets tough, right? Because if you go middle, index, thumb, well then if you want to get the fourth string, so this is strings 1, 2, 3, 4, you have to get that with your index finger, right? Which is actually sometimes a good way to do it. Middle, index, thumb, index. But I find that kind of awkward, so what I'll end up often doing is middle, thumb, index, thumb. And when you're dealing with weird rhythms, it gets even tougher than that. But when we get to the part, and the hardest part here is we do this often. There's a couple ways of doing it. You can either go, index, thumb, thumb, index, or thumb, index, thumb, index. So we'll talk a bit more about when we get that, but it is kind of a nice thing to practice. If that throws you off, just spend a little bit of time doing a couple different combinations so that you know that you can do it all different ways, and then it comes out quite naturally when you're playing. Okay, was that I think that's... Oh, last thing that I should mention, this probably should have gone right at the beginning, but when you listen to this tune, it's got this cool like thirds and sixths lines. So you have like the sounds of thirds and sixths. Everything is harmonized in the original. And at first I was like, oh, maybe I want to do that on the banjo. But I find when you just do harmonies of everything, the banjo kind of loses its banjo-ness. It's like, oh, I could just play this on the guitar and it would sound better. So that's why I wanted to do this in more of a melodic style to let the like really banjo-ness of it come out. Okay, that said, let's proceed onto the tab. So we'll just start with this little intro. Now notice a couple things here with this. I'm sliding to that first note just to emphasize it. And notice these two notes are the same. This is a very banjo thing. You're going to see me do this again and again and again, right? If I want to play the same note twice, I'm going to hit it on two different strings. Right? And these slides help emphasize the note, and they also help to kind of add the banjo-ness of it. Okay, so the intro. A section, right? We basically are holding a C chord. I like to do a hammer on here. This is a slide. Okay, again. Now, one of the toughest parts here is this. I really like to pick that, thumb, index, thumb, index. But if you find that very tough, you can always do a pull-off. But I don't like the way that sounds too much. Okay, moving on to the B section here. Whoop. This is that crazy rundown. Right, this slide doesn't happen. I think in the original, you get that sort of a sound where essentially what we're doing is we're going from a note of the C chord to another note of the C chord, E. We're going from a G to an E, and we go chromatically down. But then we offset it, right, by kind of circling around this note. Two notes above, two notes below. Which is a cool sound. This is how I play it. Let me play the line. Right? So yeah, this I would definitely recommend first finger, third finger, pinky finger. And then that way your first finger is right there to do this. Now with this part here, I want you to see a C chord. I want you to visualize the C chord here. I'm playing just these two notes, but I want to get it with these fingers. I don't want to get it with these fingers. I don't want to get it with these fingers. It's part of a C chord, and if you can see that, it makes it a lot easier. Okay, then we have the little bass line, bow, next line. Right, so here we just have this little rundown. And I think this is the first time I'm throwing in some double stops. Oh no, that was a double stop. Wow. I just kind of pedal this high G, right? And then I'm right in this position to have this kind of bass line. Okay, continuing on, we're going to look at this C section. So now this is the part where we have this mixed modal chord. So the melody is... But on the C note here, to make it kind of easy, more interesting, I mean, you could harmonize a C note with if you're in the key of C, you can do it with a C chord, you can do it with an F chord. But to make it more interesting, we kind of harmonize it with a note from C minor, right? A flat, an A flat chord. So that's the reason I really wanted to get that double stop, to show, hey, we're playing a chord out of the key. Okay, let me play through the line and we'll talk about it. Okay, so again, we have these slides. This is just a melodic thing. This is probably the toughest part here. I like to do it with a bar. Sometimes you'll see me do it this way. So whatever's easiest for you. Index finger or third middle pinky. I think later on it's easier to do it that way for me. And then you'll notice my fingers. I have written, what do I have written here on this? It's, I have index thumb, index thumb. Yeah, I might change that up and do thumb, index, thumb, index. That's also a really common thing that I might do. You just want to make sure that you're not doing thumb twice in a row. I mean, you could go index, thumb, thumb, index as well, but that feels a bit awkward to me. Okay, and then that repeats, where we just stop, and then we have this little bass line again. Right, next line. Then we have the phrase from the intro, exactly. Alright, now we're going to come back. The second time I do the C section in this, I'm going to put up the first line again. This last bar where I do the bass line, I like to do this like coin getting sound. Right? That's not what happens in it. Now this is a bit tougher. This is kind of a nice little variation. It sounds great, really good on the banjo. But the problem is we end with our thumb. So when you put this in, let me just put it in context. Now the problem is we're ending with our thumb, and we have this next bar where we're going back to the da-da-da with the double stops. Now normally we're going to do that with our thumb and our index, but because we're ending this with our thumb, I find it much smoother to use the middle and the index to get this that time. So here you get, right? So that might be a little bit of a thing that like catches people if you're trying to throw that lick in. But if you practice just getting it with these fingers that second time, that can make that a lot smoother. Okay, moving on to the D section. We're not going to go back to the A, we're just trudging on to the D. This is a little bit of a different groove. We've got some double stops and stuff going on. Here's what it sounds like. First line. Alright, there we go. And you can see the chords. It's a C chord, chromatic connecting note, F chord shape. I can hold the whole thing if I want. I'm sliding into a G. Now here's this little melodic line. Right, then the second half is pretty much the same. Right, I just go to the low note just because I like the way it sounds. Now this little ending. So let me play just that line. That's again one of those rundowns, right? I'm going, I'm looking at the last four notes. Is open, right? And you'll see that's middle, thumb, index, thumb. Right, that ending's a little bit tough. Okay, then the outro starts like you have that A section. But now here we've got this little retardando. There we have this. And what I like to do is slide with my pinky here to this B flat. And have this second here where they're bleeding into each other. So. And then we make the C chord. Pull off and hammer on there. Alright. So that's the way that sounds. Okay, last thing I'm going to do here is with the tab up on the screen, I'm just going to play through the whole thing. I'm not going to do the repeats because I'm lazy. What I'll do is I'll go A, A, B, B, C, D, C, just so that that second C we can get in that second lick, and then the outro. But here it goes. I hope you enjoyed this. please consider supporting me on Patreon if you want some PDFs or you just like the stuff that I'm doing. Anywho, this is what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat. Here comes the D section. Repeats. C again. Outro. All right. Till next time. Bye.